All right, so I am testing as I'm going here. It's Brenda Meller, flying without a net, so to speak, here today, going live on Restream. My first time doing a solo episode. I've been doing LinkedIn Lives for many, many years, and I've done solo episodes, I've done interviews. I was using StreamYard for a while. StreamYard started hiccuping on me, so I decided to look around, and I keep hearing about Restream. So I decided to set up a Restream account. So I'm going to try a solo episode for the very first time here today. If you're watching, could you do me a favor? Let me know in comments. Just say hello, hi, say your name, whatever, because I want to make sure that the live streams are picking up. If we were in a real live room and I was starting to speak, I'd be tapping on the microphone saying, "Can you hear me in back?" And everybody in the back would be giving me a thumbs up. When you're going on a live stream on video or audio, you don't have that luxury unless the audience is participating in comments. So if you're hearing me, do let me know in comments. And I'm going to just check my settings real quick too here. A Restream is similar to StreamYard in many aspects, but there's a couple things that are different in here as well. So it looks like my audio is picking up. It looks like I'm live on LinkedIn. I think I am live on YouTube. And now I am also live on Instagram as well. So we're going 3 networks right now live today. And our topic today is, I should probably put this on the screen for all of you if you didn't get a chance to see the intro video that was playing. I'm going to be doing some Q&A on LinkedIn here today and learning my way around Restream. Bear with me here. Okay, I think I figured this out. Did it work? There it is. Look right below me here. So today we're going to be talking about social selling on LinkedIn, and this is a bit of an introduction to my program, which I call the Recipe for Social Selling on LinkedIn as well. So I'll be doing some Q&A questions that have come up about LinkedIn as well as about the program over the past week when I've been doing my launch webinars. So excited to share all of this with you. And I see the chat. Royce, I just literally figured out where the chat was. So your comment was probably sitting there waiting for me all along. But thank you so much for saying hi. So I know the live stream's picking up on LinkedIn and you're saying it looks and sounds great. So that is awesome. And Freya, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. I believe you were on my webinar with me as well this past week. So delighted that you're finding me here. And I'm looking forward to sharing some questions and some answers with all of you today. Now, for those of you who are watching live, or maybe you're watching this playback, or even you're listening to this on my podcast later, if you ever have any LinkedIn questions, feel free to reach out to me. If we're connected on LinkedIn, you can send the questions to me in a direct message. If you're not connected, you can email me your questions and just email them to brenda@mellermarketing.com. Okay. And what I try to do is, instead of just responding to one person, if Jeff were to email me and ask me a question, which he wouldn't because he's a LinkedIn guru, you know that, right? But if he were, instead of just replying back to Jeff, you know what I do? I go on to LinkedIn and I do a featured Q&A. Now, we know the LinkedIn algorithm rules are such that you'll get the best amount of reach and impressions if you only post once a day or once within every 18 hours. So if I've already posted once for the day on my personal profile, then I'll go on my company page for Meller Marketing and I'll do my featured Q&A there. Okay, so that's kind of how things are going to work here today. I'm going to be answering some questions that have come in recently about LinkedIn, about this whole concept of social selling, and about my recipe program. And I'll be going live for about 30 minutes in total here today. So Jeff, it is a delight to see you, my friend. We've had the chance to meet in person, and he's such a great guy. Comes up with really clever acronyms as well. Jeff, I'm going to challenge you to come up with an acronym for the recipe. And you know about me, you know about my LinkedIn knowledge and the gems that I share, my love of pie. So let's see if he can come up with something. I wonder if he has like an acronym generator or something like that. All right, so I'm going to be looking over there today because I've got a list of questions and I want to give you some advice along the way as well. If you do live streams like this, if you do LinkedIn Live or YouTube Live or Instagram Live, anything like that, try to look at the camera as much as you can. I'm touching the camera as I do that because when you're making eye contact with the camera, you're making eye contact with your viewer. Your natural human behavior is to look down at yourself or look over at the chat. but it actually looks so much better, doesn't it, when I'm looking at you? Don't you feel like I'm looking at you right now, right? As opposed to, I feel a little disconnected when I'm looking off to the side, right? So I'm letting you know the reason I'm looking off to the side is because I am looking at the list of questions. Carol Dorsey helped me out on my webinars this week. Shout out to Carol Dorsey. And she's a really great virtual assistant if you're looking for one, by the way. She helped me with chat to collect the questions and put them in a Google Doc. So I'm kind of reading them off on here. Now, there's a few things that we covered in this week's webinar, and like the question is only going to make sense if you were on the webinar. So I'm actually going to do some screen share to illustrate some of these points as we're going throughout the day. And one thing I want to start with is someone asked a question about statistics about unique users on LinkedIn versus other networks. Now, I was on a LinkedIn webinar. It was within the past year. I can't pinpoint exactly. I could probably find the source for it. I think I've got like the playback link. And it was delivered by LinkedIn employees. And they were sharing the value of using LinkedIn and some different statistics related to that. And the question that I got asked on the webinar is on LinkedIn slide, do you have stats for X, AKA Twitter? So let me share with you the slide that they are referring to. I'm not doing the webinar again. I did it a few times in the past week. I feel like to some extent, when you are marketing an event, you have to be promoting it to the extent that you feel like I'm like, I have to be annoying people at this point, right? I emailed them. I've been posting. I emailed them again. I emailed them. And I really had a great turnout for the webinar. And the way I look at it is people are busy. So I don't really think I'm annoying people. I'm offering it up to you. If you're interested, you come on the webinar. And if not, you delete the email. I'm fine with that, right? And if you really feel like it's not a good fit, you're going to unsubscribe. And that's okay with me as well, because you're not my fit. You're not my client. That's okay. And you can always come back in. But on my webinar, I shared this stat, and this was something that was put together by the LinkedIn team, and they were talking about supercharging your page, best practices for organic and paid growth on LinkedIn. It was actually in June of 2023. I cited my sources in here. And you're going to see here that LinkedIn can help you to reach unique audiences that are not on some of the other platforms. So if you are using Facebook, for example, 15% of LinkedIn's 1 billion members never visit Facebook. So you're missing out on them as an opportunity. The other stat I shared with the yellow arrow next to it is 47% of LinkedIn users never visit Instagram. So if you're using Instagram to promote your business, if you're watching this on Instagram here today, and I love Instagram, by the way. I see there's a few folks that are watching on Instagram right now. But I want to let you know that if you're only using Instagram as a way of promoting your business, you're missing out on a huge opportunity because 47% of LinkedIn's 1 billion members never visit Instagram. Now, the question I received from the person was, do you have the stats for X, AKA Twitter? By the way, do you call it X or do you call it Twitter? Let me know in chat if you can. I still call it Twitter. I only know of like one person who calls it X, and everyone else seems to call it Twitter. And I'm not using it as heavily as I used to, I will admit, but I still call it Twitter. Now, the stat that LinkedIn provided was that 48%, I'm putting my little mouse in the middle here, 48% of LinkedIn's members never visit Twitter. Now, this data was as of 2023. It's probably changed a little bit since then. But something to keep in mind that you can reach people who are only on LinkedIn who are not on some of the other platforms. I think that's the key takeaway from that. Okay, so that was the very first question. And again, if you're just joining us here today, we're doing some Q&A on social selling concepts, as well as LinkedIn questions that you might have. And I'm launching a program called the Recipe for Social Selling. It's my 4th cohort. Today is the last day to enroll. And I am sharing some information about that in here as well. So I'm going through questions that were asked during my launch webinar. So the second question is the person asked, can I go deeper into the concept of connecting versus following on LinkedIn? So the question is, what's the difference between connecting and following, or what are the benefits of connecting versus following? I always like to tell people that connecting is a two-way action. So on LinkedIn, and this is something that's really unique to LinkedIn, not on the other social networks. On LinkedIn, when you connect with someone, one person initiates the invitation to connect. They may or may not add a note, keeping their fingers crossed. I like to add a note myself. And if the other person who's the recipient of that invitation accepts it, then they become directly connected. Okay. And on LinkedIn, you might see next to a person's name, Brenda Meller first, or Jeff Young second. It might mean that, second means you're not directly connected, but you share a common connection. i.e. Brenda Meller in that instance, right? So LinkedIn, we go up to 3 levels deep. It's kind of like that Kevin Bacon 7 degrees of separation, right? Now, when you connect with a person on LinkedIn, that invitation is sent, it is accepted by the other party. So it's a two-way action. Then what happens is both of you will see the first next to your name when you look at each other's profiles. You'll both have the ability to message each other back and forth. And I think what's inherent with that is that you have permission to message them. And right. And there's this whole concept years ago, there was this focus on permission-based marketing, getting people's permission to market to them, then they're more apt and receptive to those messages. So if you're looking to sell to people, to find clients, to get high quality clients through LinkedIn, I think it's better to connect with your ideal clients, your prospects, if you will, than it is to follow them. Okay, so connection is a two-way action. You get the ability to message them. You get the permission to message them. You also get the ability to see all of their contact info that they've chosen to make accessible. And you will potentially see their posts in your homepage feed. They will potentially see your posts in the homepage feed. So, which brings me to the second part. What is a follower? Now, a follower action is a one-way action. You can go to my profile right now on LinkedIn. If we're not connected, you'll see the follow button on there. If you click on follow, I don't have to do anything. When you follow me, you'll start to see my posts and updates in your homepage feed. You can't message me. You don't have permission to message me. You don't have that opened up yet. And if my contact info is not all public, you can only see what I choose to share with you. So for example, you're not going to see my email address in the contact info section. So that's the recommendation there. And just so you're aware, connections, we have a limit on LinkedIn of 30,000, whereas followers are really unlimited. But really, if you look at there's 1 billion LinkedIn members, you can get up to 1 billion followers is how I look at it. You probably won't, but there is a ceiling. It's just the potential of the LinkedIn universe. Okay. All right. Someone did ask what does the recipe program start and when is the last day to register? And since they asked that question, I'm going to do a quick screen share and share this page with you. This is the 4th cohort that I've launched in my program called the Recipe for Social Selling. And I'm closing out the registration doors today so that everyone can move through the cohort at the same time. So we've actually got, as of the time of this live broadcast, a little under 11 hours to go. My countdown ticker will be playing there for you. And if you're interested in learning more, you can go to mellermarketing.com/recipe. You can also scan the QR code if you're watching this on screen. Now, for any reason you are watching this after enrollment has ended, I know it's going to be a bummer, but if you go to that page, you can join the wait list for the next time we open, which should be sometime next spring or summer, tentatively, depending on how busy I am, because if I have a busy season, I might delay it till later in the year. So if you're thinking about signing up, this is the time to do so. Okay. And then they asked some questions about the timeline. So I'm going to scroll down. You can read through all of this later if you'd like. Got some great testimonials for my current members and clients in here as well. And I believe I have the timeline under the Q&A in here. Let me just see in there. So we do have, it's a question. It says, can I enroll later? Let me see if I can make this bigger. Does that work? Yeah. Our doors will close for registration today, Wednesday, October 30th at 10 p.m. Eastern time tonight. And module 1 will be opening, it actually should say tomorrow, not Wednesday. Today's Wednesday. It should say Thursday, October 31st will be when module 1 opens. And then we have our first small group coaching call a week from tomorrow, Thursday, November 7th. And that's tentative based on the schedules of our cohort members. So I will put a line in the sand. I'll see if that date works with everyone, but that's kind of what we're going to be looking at there. Okay, so that's a quick overview of answering that question, which is, again, when does it start? When does the recipe program start? And when is the last day to register? The last day to register is today. Okay, another question. How many hashtags are recommended to add to your post? Is there an ideal number? Someone else said hashtags are no longer as powerful as they used to be. That person was correct in that hashtags are no longer as powerful as they used to be. And LinkedIn even seems to have stepped back from the use of hashtags on the platform. So what I will say is everything I'm reading right now seems to indicate that if you want to use hashtags, you can. You seem to reach people who are following those hashtags. I don't know if they're pushing them out to the homepage feed as much as they used to, but the ideal number is 3 to 5. Now, I did just see an email from Richard Vanderblom. He published the latest algorithm report on LinkedIn. And I believe in there, like there's a huge decline in the impressions generated by use of hashtags and posts as a result of the report. I haven't purchased the report and downloaded and digested it yet. But what he is saying in there is backing up my own personal experience on this. So I will say, generally speaking, the biggest question I get about hashtags on LinkedIn from my clients is what's a hashtag, which tells me that people on the whole just don't understand, they're not using them. So if you're comfortable using hashtags, 3 to 5 is a good number. And it doesn't seem that they are as powerful in terms of helping you with reach as they used to be. I would agree with that. Okay. Another question regarding LinkedIn, polls don't appear as often as they used to. Has they noticed that? Has there been a shift? And that's a great question. Polls used to be huge when they first came out. They got enormous amounts of reach. So all of us were using them almost daily, right? And we all got kind of sick of them, and then everybody kind of stopped using them. I've noticed that when I do a poll, I tend to get really good reach still, but you have to make it conversation worthy, almost like water cooler talk, get people into the questions. Like for tomorrow, for example, it's Halloween here in the United States. And I might say, what's your favorite Halloween candy? Peanut butter cups, Butterfingers, Starburst, or other comment below. Like if I do a post like that, people will respond because it's conversational water cooler talk. If you can create a poll that's related to your business even slightly, even better. But do keep in mind, nobody's going to answer a question like what keeps you up late at night as it relates to your finances. Nobody's going to answer that. Okay. So try to use polls strategically to create conversations, keeping in mind that a portion of people reading that poll, participating in that poll, are going to click to come back to your profile to learn more about you. Okay. All right. Is there a way to take another step to connect with impressions? And this is something I talked about in my webinar, the fact that you can't see who looks at your post, but they were saying, how do we figure out who those people are to connect with those individuals? And I look at the people that are counted in impressions are readers. I like to call them readers because they're reading LinkedIn. They're not stalkers or lurkers. That sounds negative. They're reading, which is really what LinkedIn was designed for, to provide you with information. So we don't know who they are, and thus they self-identify by either liking, reacting, commenting, replying, sending you a direct message, inviting you to connect. So they appear in impressions in the count, like a car driving by a billboard on the side of a highway, but we don't know who's inside the car, right? So what I would encourage you to do, if you want to try to connect to more people who are counted in your impressions, invite them into your posts. Like, for example, this live stream right now, I am inviting people into the chat. I'm saying, go into chat and say hello. I'm inviting you in. When we do so, then I can see people like Royce and like Jeff. I'm rotating a couple of these comments up on screen. By the way, recipe, Jeff, I knew you wouldn't let me down. Real experience can interest people everywhere. I like it. Very clever. And you can see people like Jen as well. So when you invite people into the comments, we can see who they are, and then I could invite them to connect with me. Okay. So, and Jen comments on the hashtag. She says, the only time I search by hashtags is when I'm looking for some to put on my post, right? So there are some people that are hashtag users. They will click and search for posts by hashtags. I don't know if following a hashtag brings those hashtags into your post as much as it used to. So use it or not. Okay. And that's that question. Okay. I'm going to pull up a couple questions that I'm getting from the audience in here as well. This one, this first one, it says LinkedIn user, which either means you don't have your privacy settings set to public, or your public profile settings set to public, or your third-party stream is not set to show us who you are. So I have a blog on that. If you're interested, comment and say, yes, send me the blog, and I'll do that afterwards later on today. Why are LinkedIn ads so expensive compared to, say, Google ads? Great question. And full disclaimer, I do not work for LinkedIn. I am an independent marketing consultant. What I will be sharing with you is from the point of view of a former corporate marketer. My organization used to spend tens of thousands of dollars in LinkedIn ads every quarter. And when I became independent, I also managed ads on behalf of a few organizations. And I've worked with other people who are really experts in LinkedIn ads. For example, AJ Wilcox, he's the guy you want to go to. His agency, that's all they do is they run LinkedIn ads. But all of the people that are experienced with using LinkedIn ads will say the same thing. Yes, they are expensive. You definitely get a higher quality clientele on LinkedIn. And this was actually something that I shared in my presentation this week. And let me see if I can find it real quick, because I'm going to show you this. Yes, I can find it. This was a stat that was shared on another LinkedIn webinar by the team at LinkedIn. So I always say, when you look at data points, consider the source. is it an independent third party or do they have a vested interest? They might be inflating this slightly is what I'm saying. So just be careful of using this. But LinkedIn is saying that LinkedIn audiences have 2 times the amount of buying power compared to the average web audience. And I look at that as like Google ads, right? So people that are seeing your Google ads may not have as much budget to spend as the average person who's using LinkedIn. Does that make sense? So that's how I kind of like equalize that in my brain when I'm thinking about LinkedIn ads are being so expensive and the buying power. So why are they so expensive? Because you get higher quality people. You have an audience that's going onto LinkedIn, and it's almost like when we go onto LinkedIn, we have our blinders on and we're more open and receptive to messages that we're seeing in our homepage feed. And a part of those messages are sponsored ads. Have you noticed that? You'll see like a post, a sponsored ad, a couple more posts, another sponsored ad. On your right-hand side, you'll see sponsored ad. You can do in-mails that get into your direct messages, and sometimes they get mixed up with real people messages, so you'll read them, you stumble upon them. So it's just a higher quality of clientele that you can reach with LinkedIn ads, and LinkedIn knows that. Supply and demand, they've priced their ads accordingly, okay? Now, there are ways that you can reduce the cost of your ads, but on the whole, what I will share with you, and if you talk to AJ Wilcox or others, they'll agree with the same sentiment, your product or service should have a pretty high dollar value. I've seen that anywhere from $9,000 to $25,000 plus. So if you're selling a book for $30, it doesn't make sense to run LinkedIn ads. Does that make sense? Okay. And then the other thing is a lot of people nowadays are like, here's $100 LinkedIn ads credit. LinkedIn might give it to you. You might have somebody who's like a celebrity who's like, here, use my $100 ad credit. And you're like, okay, I'll pay $100 for them and I'll put my own $100 in. You basically just thrown away money by throwing $100 at LinkedIn. If you want to get results using LinkedIn ads, you should be prepared to invest in LinkedIn ads and LinkedIn marketing solutions on an ongoing basis for multiple months, 3 to 6 months plus, if not annually. You should be spending a minimum, and I've heard it anywhere from like $3,000 to $5,000 per month in LinkedIn ads. Okay. So why are they so expensive? Quality, reach, but again, it's not for everyone. It's only for individuals who have a product or service that's a higher price point. And I would say combined with that, your employees should have optimized profile. Your sales team should be trained on using social selling principles. Your company page should be actively posting. There's a lot of things that I would recommend that you do before you pay money for LinkedIn ads. I don't want to see you wasting your money. I want to see you get the best out of that investment if you do go that route. So hopefully that helps you out. And thank you for sharing. By the way, on the Twitter thing, I see that Royce mentioned I've gotten used to X. I don't use it, Royce. I'm sorry, I'm Twitter. But he uses tweet as a verb. So do we use X as a verb? I X'd it on X. Like, how do we say that now? I don't know. Good point on here. Hey, Heather Doran is joining us. Hey, Heather, thank you so much for watching us here today. All right, we got about 5 minutes left. So I will go through your questions and then we're going to start to wrap this up here. Royce is saying, what's the minimum amount of LinkedIn activity do you look for in a prospect? That's a great question. So I want to kind of break the two questions apart in here. Minimum amount of LinkedIn activity and then prospect. So let me start with prospect. So each of us, Royce, has different definitions of what a prospective ideal target audience is or a prospect. For me, I'll just say, for example, I do LinkedIn team training. So my prospect for LinkedIn team training, the person I will talk to, the decision maker, so to speak, is usually a VP of marketing or business development or a director in one of those roles who is working for a large organization with a certain amount of revenue. I'll just say 10 to 25 million plus million, typically minimum revenue. They are typically located inside the United States. And there might be other criteria in there as well. So think about your prospect. You have some specific criteria that you're looking for, right? And, some of the people are readers, so they're not going to be super active on LinkedIn. So if I am looking to connect to someone that might be a prospect for team training, when you say minimum amount of LinkedIn activity, I'm going to kind of address it from the profile perspective, which includes activity. I want to make sure that they have 500 plus connections. For me, there might be certain criteria that help me to go, okay, they need this. So that person might have a branded header on their profile, but if I look at their company page and I look at their other employees, it's hit or miss. They don't all have LinkedIn page headers. So I know they have a header image library, but people aren't using it. So to me, that's a flag. So that's something I can look at from their activity. Now, if you're trying to, Royce, determine who to invite to connect based on are they active or not on LinkedIn, I would look for people who have 500 plus connections, look in their activity section and see how long ago, if at all, they have ever posted, commented, replied, clicked on reaction, like anything. If there's no activity in there, they are probably a reader. They may or may not connect. But if they have 500 plus connections, if I were you, I'd look at a common connection and request an introduction first, especially if they don't have any activity. Okay. Hey, Brenda, I see that you're connected with Heather Doran. Could you introduce us? Right. And then I give Heather a heads up. Heather, my friend Royce wants to connect with you. Would it be okay if I introduced you? I get permission from Heather. She says yes. Then I do a LinkedIn DM with both of you. And then I say, I'll let you take it from here. And then you say, hey, Heather, I'll follow up you and invite you to connect. Right. So there's some things that I do from a strategic standpoint when I think about leveraging the concepts of social selling that I do differently. And this is all of the, this is all covered in my program, the recipe for social selling, but it's the approach that I've taken myself to grow my business strategically. So thank you so much for being on, and I hope that helps to answer you on there. Okay, so let's see what else. And it looks like Jeff is in for the assist here. Jeff could see that it was Carlos that had the, it said LinkedIn user. It was like non-public. And it looks like Carlos said, yep, that makes sense. And he said, thank you. So thank you so much for doing that. And thank you, Carlos, for being on. I see it's the first time you've been on the live videos. By the way, Carlos, pro tip for you, anytime you go on a live video, I would highly encourage you to go into the comments, just like you've done, and leave a thoughtful comment because it increases your visibility and you also get some visibility with fellow connections that are in the stream there as well. All right. Freya says you can identify your viewers. You can get a picture of the demographics. Yes, you can. Certainly look at the LinkedIn data for that. Thank you for sharing that, Freya. Heather says, I'm back on LinkedIn after 5 years avoiding it. Why, Heather? We're great here. I've updated my profile. Where is the next best place I should start so I can grow my network for connections or speaking ops? Okay, so Heather, I've got a checklist. If you go to mellermarketing.com/checklist, it's LinkedIn for speakers. And I walk you through different areas of optimizing your profile and your activity to help you to get more paid speaking gigs. Okay. So again, mellermarketing.com/checklist. Go to that. I would say for you though, Heather, start by spending 15 minutes a day in the homepage, start interacting with people regularly, and then post once a week. Okay. Those are the two things I'm going to give you as a homework assignment. Actually, 3. Download my checklist, spend 15 minutes a day in the homepage feed, and post once a week. Now, if I were you, Heather, when you go to events, post pictures of other speakers. So I'm going to take this off the screen. If you want to post this on screen today, grab a screen capture and go on LinkedIn and say, today I attended a great LinkedIn live event hosted by @Brenda Meller, tag me in the post. And I learned some techniques to help me as I'm ramping my speaking business up here on LinkedIn. Here are a few of my key takeaways and like summarize a few of the things. Download Brenda's checklist, make sure that you're active on LinkedIn, post weekly. It's a really great way of the primary goal for those posts is sharing the knowledge, right? The secondary is book me as a speaker, but you're letting people discover that on their own. You're not like screaming in their face, book me as a speaker. Does that make sense? So this is like this social selling approach. We're building relationships, we're building trust with people. And these are just a few of the concepts that I teach inside my program, which is called the Recipe for Social Selling on LinkedIn. So hopefully that helps you out. And thank you so much for doing that. Heather, the best way to get to 500 connections is twofold. One is send out invitations every single week. If you've got the free basic version of LinkedIn, you can only include a note with 5 of them. If you're using premium, you can include a personal note with all of them. And I believe you can still send up to 100 invitations per week. So that's one way, actively reaching out and inviting people to connect. The other way is accepting invitations that have been sent to you. So Heather, if you have an email list, what I would do if I were you, send out an email to your full email list and say, hey, are we connected yet on LinkedIn? And drive them to your profile and ask them to invite you to connect. If you have an email list of over 500 plus, I'm guessing you might have a couple thousand on there, you can easily get to 500 plus, just like that. The other thing you could do is you could post on other networks. If you're active on Instagram or Facebook, because you've taken a pause on LinkedIn, you've probably been active other places, on YouTube. Wherever you are, encourage people to come over to LinkedIn to invite you to connect. You can get to 500 plus fairly quickly with that. Okay. All right. I think I'm going to scroll through the chat. one last time. I want to make sure I pulled up everybody who is on screen here. And I see, whoops, I didn't mean to blacklist you. Oh, shoot. I added somebody to the blacklist and I didn't mean to. I'm new to StreamYard. I'm so sorry for doing that. I don't know if anyone is familiar with StreamYard or Restream rather. How do I remove someone from a blacklist? Because I didn't mean to do that. I meant to click on show and instead it hid them. It's not this person. It was a woman. And I apologize for whoever that was. She probably got kicked out and is wondering what she did wrong. Nothing. It was me. It was a user error. David is saying similar industries or company that needs services. That would, yeah, I would certainly connect with people who are in similar industry or companies that might need services. I think that's what you're asking there. If not, let me know. Okay. And finally, we will end here with Elizabeth, who says, thank you for the great tips today. I really enjoyed LinkedIn, the contacts, and the readers. It is a fabulous source to connect. I agree with you wholeheartedly on that. And thank you so much, Elizabeth, for watching. All right. With that said, I hope you enjoyed today's broadcast. This was a very impromptu session. Just to give you a bit of an overview of the expertise I share with my audience, both on LinkedIn. If you're following me on LinkedIn, you'll get these gems all the time. Also, if you come into my VIP email list, go to mellermarketing.com/subscribe. You'll get some things occasionally sent to your inbox. And finally, and foremost, the reason I did the call today is that doors are now open for my program, which is called the Recipe for Social Selling on LinkedIn. You have to enroll by tonight because we're closing the doors and cohort 4 will be starting together in the program tomorrow. Okay. If you're interested, go to mellermarketing.com/recipe. If you happen to be listening to this after the doors close, you can get on our wait list and we'll be opening enrollment again sometime in 2025. With that said, have a wonderful day and thank you all so much for watching. If you're watching the playback, still leave comments because I'll check your comments later on today. Have a wonderful afternoon and I'll see you all on LinkedIn. Take care. Ooh, I'm trying to play my outro video. Give me a second here. Testing.